Megan sat in the dim light of the living room, her laptop glowing weakly on the coffee table. She had moved into the century-old house just 2 weeks ago, hoping to escape the chaos of city life and work on her book in peace. It was cheap, suspiciously so, but she convinced herself it was the charm of small-town living. Now, sitting alone in the heavy silence of the house, she wasn't so sure anymore. "Stop being ridiculous," she muttered to herself, closing her laptop. Her editor had already sent 2 terse emails about her overdue manuscript. She didn't have time for imaginary noises. The scratching stopped just as suddenly as it had begun. Megan froze. That's when she heard it. A whisper. Faint, unintelligible, but undeniably real. It came from upstairs. "Hello?" Megan called, her voice trembling. She laughed nervously, shaking her head. "Great. Talking to ghosts now." The house answered with silence. She stood, the floor creaking under her weight, and grabbed her phone before heading toward the staircase. "Hello?" she called again, climbing the creaky steps. Each step felt heavier than the last, her heart pounding louder than her footfalls. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched before her, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb. The whispering returned, louder this time, clearer. It was coming from the far end of the hall. Megan's hands trembled as she reached for the doorknob of the last room, a room she had barely entered since moving in. It had an oppressive air about it, as if the space itself resented her presence. Slowly, she pushed the door open. The room was cold, far colder than the rest of the house. Moonlight spilled through the cracked window, illuminating the sparse furnishings. An old wooden bed frame, a tattered rug, and a wardrobe with peeling paint. The whispering stopped the moment she stepped inside. She held her breath, scanning the room. Nothing moved. Then she saw it. Scratches. Deep, uneven gouges etched into the floorboards, forming a crude spiral that coiled toward the center of the room. Her stomach churned as she knelt to inspect them. They were fresh. "Someone's been here," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. As if in response, the wardrobe creaked. Megan shot to her feet, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. The wardrobe door was slightly ajar, revealing only darkness within. She approached it slowly, each step a battle against the primal instinct screaming at her to run. Her fingers brushed the edge of the door. She took a deep breath and yanked it open. Nothing. The wardrobe was empty. Megan let out a shaky laugh, relief washing over her. But as she turned to leave, she noticed something out of the corner of her eye. Words. Scrawled inside the wardrobe in jagged, uneven letters were the words, "Do not listen." The whispering returned, louder than ever, wrapping around her like a physical force. Megan stumbled back, clutching her ears. It wasn't just one voice, it was a chorus, overlapping and chaotic, each word clawing at her mind. She bolted from the room, slamming the door shut behind her. The whispers didn't stop. They followed her, growing louder, more desperate. "Megan." Her name. Her blood turned to ice. She didn't remember telling anyone in town her name. She ran downstairs, grabbed her car keys, and fled the house without looking back. Megan spent the night in her car, parked at the edge of a nearby forest. The whispers had stopped the moment she left the house, but their memory lingered, gnawing at the edges of her sanity. By morning, exhaustion and curiosity drove her to the local library. She found an elderly librarian who seemed to know everything about the town's history. "The old McAllister house?" the librarian said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You're living there?" "Not anymore," Megan muttered. "What happened there?" The librarian hesitated, glancing around as if the walls themselves might be listening. "They say the house calls to people, always has. It's seen more than its share of tragedy. Disappearances, suicides, people losing their minds. The last owner boarded up that room upstairs, said it was cursed. Why didn't anyone tell me this before I moved in? Megan demanded. Would you have believed it? The librarian replied grimly. Megan's stomach sank. She left the library with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear. She couldn't go back to that house. That night, she checked into a motel, determined to leave town the next morning. But sleep didn't come. The silence of the room was suffocating, every shadow a potential threat. At 3:17 a.m., her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from her own number. Come home. Megan's breath hitched. She stared at the screen, her mind racing. The phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo. Her bedroom. The wardrobe door wide open. Her heart thundered as she grabbed her things and fled.